in about 1978. I was in 4th grade, and I transferred from one class into another in January. And that's always a tenuous thing to do when you're in elementary school, because you don't know people, and you can sometimes become one of the kids that nobody wants to talk to. And that happened to me. I was one of the kids on the outside, and there was another one who had been their whole year, but he was just begging for it. His name was Chris Woolworth. He had blonde corn silk hair. You know, it's perfectly straight and always shiny. It was in a bowl cut. He had thick glasses with black rims. He had what my school called floaters, which are those pants that end above your ankle. He had white sagging socks. And to top it all off, he had an undying devotion for James Bond and a lisp. And I heard him say on more than one occasion, before he learned that this was going to get him heckled, if not smacked, James Bond is swell. So he was in a category all by himself. And then there was me. And in 1978, I had the same hairdo as Angela Davis did. And I could lose. I lost pencils in it. People would throw spitballs, and they would stick there, and I wouldn't know until I washed my hair, because it'd be 2 days later. And, then there's the obvious. Besides that, my last name is Worm. I'm introduced to everybody as Lori. I'm just begging for this, right, to be the class geek. And also, my parents are hippies, so I show up in my overalls, and my mother's embroidered my name on them. It's a mess. It's a mess. I have clogs. So Chris is on one side of the classroom, and I'm on the other one. And a good day is nobody's mean to you because they don't talk to you at all. And a bad day is a really bad day. And if you don't remember this period in your own life, you might ask, why did you guys sit together? Which is something that a stupid grown-up would ask, right? The reason, big eye roll, is God forbid we did sit together or actually matched up with each other on the playground. What's next? Chris and Lori sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. I'm not stupid. I know that's what's waiting for me if I talk to this kid. I pretend like he doesn't exist. And he does the same with me. And we just pray that we can get through the day without somebody pushing us down the stairs. Fast forward to February. I have told everybody once or 500 times that my birthday is Valentine's Day, which is a big deal in 4th grade. And we spent a whole lunch period making big envelopes out of manila folders, decorating them, and hanging them with tape off the front of our desks, every single one of us, with our names on the front of the desks. And the teacher told us, you can bring in Valentine's Day cards, but the rule is you have to bring a card for everybody. And I'm hoping that somehow, because I've mentioned once or 400 times that my birthday is Valentine's Day, maybe somebody in the class will just cut me a break for once. And maybe take one of those 5-cent Valentine's Day cards and write, "Oh, and happy birthday," or smile at me, or maybe give me a piece of candy or something like that. So this is what I'm waiting for all February, every single day. Maybe there's going to be one day where I'm going to be with the popular kids, because my birthday is Valentine's Day, and that's got to count for something. Valentine's Day rolls around. Everybody goes around to everybody's desk. You stick the Valentine's Day cards in the manila folder with the duct tape and the flowers colored on it. And everybody has to get Valentines, right? So at least I have them, even if they're not genuine Valentines. So it's lunchtime. I rip the manila envelope off the front of my desk. I dump out my cards. And, there's like the Peanuts one and the Snoopy one and the whatever, little flower cards, Happy Valentine's Day. Some of them are signed, some of them aren't. But at the bottom of the pile, and I'm holding on to this last one because I'm thinking this is almost like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's almost like the golden ticket card because it is handmade. And it is in an envelope that has my name written in glitter. And the glue is still drying because somebody worked on it to the very last minute. And it's been colored. And you can tell that somebody spent a lot of time on it. So I'm praying this is it, the moment that is going to change my fourth grade world. And I get through my pile of other cards, and I open this card, and inside is a Valentine that's covered with lace doilies, that has one of those fold-out, pop-out flowers on it. If you don't know how to make those, I can show you afterwards at coffee hour. You take a little piece of paper, and anyway. So it has a pop-out flower, and in glue and glitter, because no glitter expense was spared on this card, it says, Happy Valentine's Day, Lori. Happy birthday. I love you. Chris Woolworth. Our tables and our desks are extremely close together in my class. And I see the girls and all the guys looking at my desk because they see I have the fanciest Valentine in the whole class. And so Alicia leans over to see who sent it to me, laughs, whispers in Sandra's ear. She laughs and whispers in Rhett's ear. He laughs and whispers in Kevin's ear. And while everybody is getting this information, telephone style, I have about 5 seconds to figure out how I'm going to react. I laugh and point. And I take the card and I hand it to Alicia. And Alicia laughs and hands it to Rhett. And Rhett hands it to Kevin. And pretty soon the whole class is laughing. And it was the first moment of my childhood when I was popular. And it lasted for the rest of the day. And it was my first remembered experience of having sold my soul. In the gospel this morning, Jesus turns to Peter and says to Peter, "Who do you say that I am?" And before he asks that question, he asks, "Who do others say that I am?" These questions aren't only for Peter. They're for you and they're for me. This is Mark talking to the people who are reading this gospel. And Peter answers the question, well, some people say you're Elijah, and some people say you're John the Baptist, and some people say you're some other prophet. People say a whole bunch of things about who Jesus is. And then Jesus, when he says, "Who do you say I am?" Peter leans in to his own heart and comes out with the answer, "I say you're the Messiah." And there are versions of this story in the other Gospels where Jesus says, "Good for you, Peter, you figured it out. I'm going to build my kingdom on you." That doesn't happen in Mark. What Jesus says next, after Peter has said, "I think you're the Messiah," is, "Don't tell anybody that." This is called the Messianic secret. It's a big deal for biblical scholars. Why did Jesus silence Peter about who he was? And why in Mark does he say it over and over again? Don't tell anybody I'm the Messiah. Don't. Bunch of answers nobody knows. I have an idea. I think that when Peter says, I think you're the Messiah, he's hoping what you and I are hoping for in a Messiah. The one who's going to hand their heads to them, the heads of all those mean girls. They're finally going to get what they deserve. Whoever it is, those bleeding heart liberals, the Trump administration, your mother-in-law, the one who's going to make the whole world right, the one who's going to change things so we, the good people, whoever we are the ones who are finally going to get vindicated and get what's coming to us, and everybody who's not good is going to get what's coming to them. The Messiah. The one who's going to fix everybody else. And then Jesus makes a confession after Peter's confession of Jesus being the Messiah. Jesus makes a confession about who he is. He identifies himself too, and he doesn't say Messiah. He says, I am the Son of Man. And the saying Son of Man in Aramaic is different than it would be in the biblical Greek, which is how it comes to us in Mark. But Jesus spoke Aramaic. And there's an idiom, apparently, in Aramaic for Son of Man that gets translated in the Greek as Son of Man. The other way it can be translated is, I am the human one. What does that mean? I think what it means, especially because I am the human one, not a human one. I am the only real human being that has ever been since before the fall of Eden. Since the first time that the human beings sold their soul because they were afraid. Since the first time you sold your soul to your job or to what other people were going to think, or so you could be financially secure. That moment when we began practicing what Jesus calls in this gospel adultery. When you put your soul up to the highest bidder. Revenge, resentment, rage, self-righteousness. Instead of being the one that God created, the human one. The one that was made in the image of God. When the people eat the fruit that God told them not to, and God comes looking for them in Genesis, God says, where are you? And the human being says, I'm afraid. And you and I, for the rest of our lives, in the middle of the night, when you can't go to sleep, when you're thinking about the future, the rest of our lives, that whispers in our ear, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. And God is constantly saying, where are you? I'm afraid. Where are you? I'm afraid. And I'll bet you one of the most quoted phrases in Scripture from the beginning of Genesis all the way through Revelation is God saying over and over again, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. When you are afraid, you're no longer worshiping me. You're worshiping that thing that's making you scared. And by the way, I find this, anytime I'm really afraid, there's no more Lori left. It's sucked out of me. I don't even exist anymore. And there's something else driving the ship, and it ain't pretty. It's the thing that laughed in 4th grade on Valentine's Day. Jesus is saying, I know you want a Messiah that's going to fix the world and make everything okay around you. But that's not the Messiah you have. I am the only human being you've ever seen since Adam and Eve. And the way you know it, says Jesus, is I am made in the image of God, and my entire life is love. And I am not going to sell out my soul to be anything other than that. And I am going to walk into your worst nightmare about what would happen if you didn't sell yourself out to your fear or your anger. And if you just walked into the world and were the image of God, love itself, love on legs with a mouth and arms and a heart, a human being heart, you walked into the world and just were that thing. I'm going to go be it. And I'm going to face all the powers of the world that corrupt and destroy it. And they're going to nail me to a cross, and I'm going to come out the other end. And I will reign. I will reign in your heart one way or another. Either now or later. And you'll either be happy with me now because you'll be willing to take on real life, or you'll have this ache that will never go away, that knows my name and who I am to you. And if you're ashamed of who I am because it's too much like that Elmer's Glue glitter Valentine and you don't want anyone to see it, those are the reasons that I will be ashamed of you. There is this Jewish theologian, Abraham Heschel. We have a child in the Sunday school named after him. And Abraham Heschel says, when I come before the throne of God, God isn't going to ask me, Abraham Heschel, why is it that you were not more like Moses? What God is going to ask me is, Abraham Heschel, why weren't you more like Abraham Heschel? If you want a Messiah who's come to fix the world and make it right, this is not your guy. I have people who come into my office every week saying, why won't God answer my prayer? Why won't God get my relationship with my mother right? Why won't God fix this illness? Why won't God change the way that people treat each other? Where is God? And I'll agree with you. I've made that prayer a lot of times. God doesn't seem to answer those prayers. There is one prayer that I know that God always answers. And that prayer is not fix everybody else, God. The prayer that God's willing to answer and always does is fix me.